Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the beloved community known as the Unitarian Universalist Church of Amherst. I'm Reverend Michelle Buhite, and it is my privilege and my joy to be the minister of this congregation. Today I'm joined up front by our worship associate and song leader extraordinaire, Amy Malachowski. She just cleared her throat as I said that. No pressure, no pressure. And of course, the unseen geniuses behind and above the scenes,
Good
Andy
morning.
and Les.
I'm Amy Malachowski, a member of the worship design team, and I've been coming here for 18 years as of last month. Time flies. For those who are gathered in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on airplane mode so that you and all may be fully present and free from distraction, as well as freeing up web bandwidth so our live streaming friends are able to enjoy the service without disruption. But first, let's do what we do best in this congregation and welcome one another, newcomers and long-timers. Let the welcoming begin.
Kind friends all gather round. There's something I would say, that what brings us together here has blessed us all today. Love has made a circle that holds us all inside, where strangers are as family and loneliness can't hide. You must give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. I've walked these mountains in the rain. I've learned to love the wind. I've been up before the sunrise to watch the day begin. I always knew I'd find you, though I never did know how. But like sunrise on a cloudy day, you stand before me now. You must give yourself to love, if love is what you're after. Open up your heart to the tears and laughter, and give yourself to love. Give yourself to love. Love is born of fire. It's planted like a seed. Love can't give you everything, but it gives you what you need. Love comes when you're ready. Love comes when you're afraid. It will be tears and laughter, and give yourself to God. Give yourself to God.
You're very responsive this morning. Thank you. Like many Unitarian Universalist congregations, it is our custom when we gather to light a flaming chalice. The chalice is a cup or vessel that symbolizes the gathered community. The flame represents the spark that each one of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. Please join me in speaking our chalice lighting words. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of life. Each week, as we light the chalice to symbolize the gathered community, we also acknowledge that our church is built on holy ground, ground that was first cultivated and occupied by the Haudenosaunee and those known as the Neutrals. We honor them as the original keepers of the land. We offer this libation as our giveaway, a symbol of our respect for and deep connection with the land. May we be good stewards of the land and courageously cultivate community with all living things. Together, we weave a tapestry of reverence and belonging. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our song of intention, Here We Have Gathered, number 360 in the gray hymnal. The words will also be projected up front.
Circle of friendship.
a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will be with one another. Whether today is your first time or you've made UU Amherst your longtime home, you are invited to share our sacred promise. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. Our journey has begun. We've gathered and greeted one another. We've acknowledged with deep gratitude the legacy of the land that holds us and the light we carry within. Everything we have done to this point in the service is centering practice. We come to church to find our center, to be reminded we are part of something much larger than ourselves, and that we are held in a love that defies our understanding. And so we bear witness to one another's joy and pain. We make room in the circle and in our hearts for all we bring. You'll note that the table where we acknowledge our joy and pain is round, a gathering place. Even as you bring your individual hopes and cares, you are part of a circle of love. So gather round, exchange a glance, a smile, even an encouraging touch. We can let go of neat lines and embrace the messiness of community. Come forward and place your stone in the company of others. Let's share a few breaths as we expand our circle to include those who may not be present, but whom we carry in our hearts. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, to care. May it ever be so in our lives. Amen, and blessed be.
Our time for all ages today begins with a poem by Kaylin Hott, God Says Yes to Me. As you're listening, consider what things God, or the inner voice, says yes to you.
God Says Yes to Me by Kaylin Hott. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes.
I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is.
I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do exactly what you want to do.
Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters?
Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that one up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes.
And so I wonder, what yes are you hearing? Not necessarily what yes are you responding to, because sometimes that takes decades. But what yes are you hearing? And if you raise your hand, I will scamper to you so you can share it with the rest of us. This is my scampering. Sorry, it's kind of disappointing.
I'm hearing yes to give up some volunteer responsibilities.
No, that's sorry, wrong number. Yeah, pretend you didn't hear any of that. Kate.
I hear yes in this loving, warm community.
See, this is the answer I like better. What? Oh,
I hear yes when someone asks me to pick up their need to be more free from things.
whew, that's a good one. What yes?
I hear yes when I wonder if it's okay to take a break sometimes.
Yes. Yes. She sees you. Oh, and then I'll wander back over there.
I hear yes when my mom and dad say, you're doing great, Mom. Marge.
We still hear that, don't we? That's awesome. There was a hand over here that was indicated. Thank you.
I hear yes to picking up sticks in my neighbor's yard.
Let's pass that down to Bob.
And yes to the many bird songs we're hearing these days.
Yes. What yes are you hearing? Oh, okay. I'm una más.
I say yes when I saw the spring plants peeking out of the ground.
Yes. Charlie.
I hear yes when I ask if it's okay to carve your own path and to do so in a forward-like motion, even if you're afraid of failure.
Yes. Oh, I thought I saw you raise your hand. Sorry. Didn't mean to make you nervous. Okay. I would like you to keep thinking about your yes. Yeses. This month's Soul Matters theme is vulnerability. What does it mean to be a people where we can be courageously vulnerable? Do those words seem contradictory? Courageously vulnerable? I'm here to tell you that it takes incredible amounts of courage to be vulnerable. And I so appreciate the container that we have created together where we can be vulnerable with one another. If vulnerability is the doorway, courage is on both sides of that door. Do you have that image? It takes courage to go in. Sometimes it takes courage to stay in for a while, and it takes courage to come out. And all of that is in layers of vulnerability. This image is a soul collage card that I created in response to a dream I had about church. I'm not going to talk about the dream today, so if you're wondering, you can just put that on hold. But the image, for me, is compelling. So there's a top window of the door within the threshold. And when I got the image of the door, someone had already cut out whatever interesting architectural thing was on that picture. But what I put behind it, so that it wouldn't just be blank paper, is a bit of the cosmos, ultimate mystery. And so you might ask yourself some questions. Is the figure in white leaving, having given up on knowing mystery? Or is that figure in white, having been filled with mystery, is walking away? Maybe it's an act of courage. It's an act of vulnerability, strength. Maybe we'll have some answers for that later on. Maybe. If you've been keeping track and counting on fingers and toes, you know that I have been here about 7.5 years. And in that time, we have built up a level of trust and authenticity. I think if you were to watch video services of our worship services from years ago, you would note that even watching us on the screen, something is different. The way we respond to one another is different. It's warmer. I take all the credit for that. I really can't take any credit for that, but it's been fun getting there. We have built up that trust and authenticity, and today I want us to lean into that. Even if today is your first day here, lean into that container of trust that allows us to be vulnerable, to be authentic. So I'm going to do something a little different, a little unusual. When I noted in one of the clergy Facebook groups that I was doing this, I got all kinds of, no, you're not doing that. That is not a thing that is done. It is now. I am returning to a sermon that I offered on my very first Sunday here in August of 2015. A sermon that was met with consternation and some hostility, and some people even got up and left. Please just strap yourselves in your seatbelts today. Don't leave. You'll ruin all that trust. You can tell me later that you felt it. So it was not the first time that I preached that sermon. I wrote it in 2010 when I was in seminary. And so first I presented it to my home congregation in Jamestown. They hated it. So then I presented it to the Buffalo congregation where I was doing my internship, and it was met with rather lukewarm, that was nice. So I offered it to my preaching class in seminary that January, and they savagely tore it apart. And it felt like they were tearing me apart. My colleagues, my friends. I presented at Chautauqua because I was invited to be one of the Sunday speakers at the Hall of Philosophy. I've never been invited back. So Les wrote me a note last night and stuck it on the kitchen counter that said, Susan B. Anthony presented at Chautauqua and was never invited back. So I'm going to claim that as something excellent. So you might be sensing a trend. I offered it to the Spartanburg, South Carolina congregation on my first Sunday with them. And as the reception line was going out, is it even a reception line? I don't even know what to call it. The greeting line. As they went through, I was told in no uncertain terms that that was not going to work for future services. And finally, I offered it here on my first day in the pulpit. And people walked out. And others said some kind of unkind things on the way out. I'm not here to, whip you, okay? If you're like, did I say a thing? I don't remember. That was so long ago. It's okay. Breathe through it. It's all good. So you may be thinking, wow, this chick doesn't know when to quit. Or perhaps you're thinking my learning curve is just like a nice dowel rod, a good, strong, straight stick. But there is a reason that I have kept offering this sermon. And I promise it wasn't because I was too lazy to write another one. It's because this sermon was me at my most vulnerable. I wanted what we all want, to be known. It all started in the children's section of the Prendergast Library in my hometown of Jamestown. I was taking a seminary class called Children's Literature as Religious Education. And I was picking up that week's selection of 15 books. Yes, do the math. Some of them were baby board books, but some of them were young adult novels, 15 books a week. And waking up in the morning and having breakfast and teaching classes and blah, blah, blah. So lots of books. And that week, I was picking up that selection, and one of the books was by Cynthia Ryland. I really don't know how to pronounce her name, but that's what it's spelled like. And she's an author I was not familiar with. And next to the book I was supposed to read was a skinny, harmless-looking little book. I have a problem with little books. They look so harmless. They're so cute. And most of them have turned me upside down. Beware of harmless-looking little books. So the book I picked up was Cynthia Ryland's poetry, God Went to Beauty School. I opened to the first page, sharing the book's title, a poem that was entitled God Went to Beauty School. And I knew, standing in the children's library at the Prendergast Library, that this book, it was going to turn me inside out. As I read her poetry, I was compelled to pull out one of my other harmless-looking little books. It's down there in the stack. UU Minister George Kimmich Beach's Questions for the Religious Journey. And I opened to a page that I had dog-eared long ago, a phrase that had caught my attention, and I had been too afraid to go with it. But now I had this other companion. And that gave me some courage, and it made me really vulnerable. And I knew that with those two sources, I had the structure for a sermon that would tell my story in an authentic way. So I'm going to offer the sermon here, stopping along the way to offer some commentary and perhaps describe how my path has changed over the last 13 years since I first wrote it. I'm using as my excuse for this self-exegesis an out-of-context quote from Unitarian ancestor and minister Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "The true preacher can be shown by this, that she deals out to the people her life passed through the fire of thought." I'm not only taking the quote out of context, but I've made the correction to the pronoun that I'm sure that Waldo wished he could have used in that day. I call him Waldo. But the sentiment is correct. I am offering to you my life passed through the fire of thought. I will say that I offered an edited version of this sermon to the Ministerial Fellowship Committee, the ones who decide who gets to be a UU minister, and they at least liked it, so it can't be all that bad. All I know is good or bad, it's all true. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. Our conceptions of God must grow or else be shattered. Those are the words of Unitarian Universalist minister George Kimmich Beach in his harmless-looking little book, Questions for the Religious Journey. As I've said, beware of little books. I've been thinking about God lately. I'll bet you have too, although you may not call the subject of your attention by that label, God. Maybe you were reading up on global climate change, or paying attention to your breath as you created an oasis of quiet in your busy life. Some of you may have gazed in wonder at the softly falling snow, while others engaged in conversations of outrage and mourning at the most recent spate of senseless violence. God is all of that and more. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. When I first delivered this sermon, there was no such thing as like screens with stuff on them. So it took a bit more remembering. It was more of a quiz when I asked this question. If you noticed a tiny little 2-letter word, I think it's a time bomb in the making. So you can see the quote, but I'm going to repeat the quote. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. Did you get it? It's not to. If you're looking at the things going, okay, it's not of. What word do you think it is? My. That's the little time bomb waiting to catch us unawares. And now that you know, we can go forward. Because I wonder what your God looks like. Is it the stern judge sitting in the clouds? Or maybe your God looks like Santa Claus or a kindergarten teacher, all sweet and generous. Maybe your God is a mountain view or the dappled morning light on the lake. I'll bet somebody's God looks like the periodic tables, maybe the glittering stars on a clear night. Does your God have gnarled arthritic fingers? Or is your God strong and youthful, capable of anything? Somebody's God smells of urine and cheap wine, calling a cardboard box home. Maybe your God smells like lilacs and mud and hope. The truly amazing thing to me is that all of these are manifestations of God. Thou art God. She sneaked that one in. We didn't expect that one to come. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. Are you completely freaked out yet? If you're keeping score, I've said the word God 22 times so far. If you have an allergy to the G word, this is going to be a long sermon because I'm only getting started. Although I was raised in a religious home where a belief in God was assumed and expected, I experienced a shattering of my faith as a young adult. 40 plus years later, I am still not sure where I am with the notion of God. For me, it is a sort of a fluctuating, sliding scale. Maybe it's like a teeter-totter, sometimes up, sometimes down. Now that may sound like an odd confession for a preacher. Over the years, I have added numerous gods and goddesses to my personal pantheon, and at times I have ushered them through that massive door, closed it, and locked it as I honored my inner humanist. Maybe you've met her. She likes to give sermons about UU history. But let's get back to the sermon. I'm going to use the quote again. The quote, if you're feeling a little allergic, A mask will fall down from above. You can breathe through it. Fix your own mask before you help someone else. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. But we only need to make peace when there has been some kind of falling out. We don't speak of making peace with someone that we get along with all the time. We make peace after we have caused or been the recipient of strife. Well, that puts a different spin on things. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. I'd also like to point out that the word between myself and God happens to be and. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. The sentence is not, I seek to make peace with myself instead of my God, nor is it I seek to make peace with myself in spite of my God. Did you ever know someone who got so mad they disowned a member of their family? Maybe that happened to you. That's what happened with me and my God. But the funny thing is, now that we're back to at least talking, each one thinks the other one did the disowning. I still kind of think she disowned me first, and then I just disowned her to get even. But I do know when it came to time to make peace that I had to make the first move. Commentary time. Okay, I don't want you to think that making peace with God or our inner knowing or the mystery or whatever you call that which is of ultimate importance is like a one-time thing. I think it's a lifelong pursuit. The Universalist side of our faith family had the right idea that all souls would one day be reconciled to God, one day in the far, far future, long beyond our puny lifetime. There is no done and dusted when it comes to reconciling ourselves. Oh, by the way, if you're keeping score, I've mentioned the G word now 35 times. So far. Did you ever look at your life through someone else's eyes? Like when you look at someone else's vacation pictures and they went to the same place you did and they did many of the same things you did, but it's your vacation, but it's not. I think that gives you a whole different perspective on things. And that's how I felt when I read Cynthia Ryland's harmless-looking little book of poems, God Went to Beauty School. My God and I were barely back on speaking terms when I got a glimpse of her God, who looked an awful lot like mine, or what mine looks like when she's not hounding me. I don't know. God seems more relaxed around Cynthia. Maybe it was beauty school. Poem. God went to beauty school. He went there to learn how to give a good perm and ended up just crazy about nails. So he opened up his own shop, Nails by Jim, he called it. He was afraid to call it Nails by God. He was sure people would think he was being disrespectful and using his own name in vain. And nobody would tip. He got into nails, of course, because he'd always loved hands. Hands were some of the best things he'd ever done. And this way he could just hold one in his and admire those delicate bones just above the knuckles, delicate as birds' wings. And after he had done that a while, he could paint all the nails any color he wanted, then say, beautiful, and mean it. Can you see how I was charmed by the quirky language and point of view? I would describe this poetry as playful reverence. I think playful reverence would go a long way toward mending some of the world's broken pieces, but I digress. It was the last line that hooked me, and I think you'll see why. He got into nails, of course, because he'd always loved hands. I understand his fascination. When I was a little girl, I went to church with my grandparents, whom I called Paca and Clara. Clara was the church pianist, and she would let me sit next to her at the piano on Sunday morning while she played those old powerhouse hymns. and I would watch her fingers, delicate and powerful. On Sunday evenings, I would sit on her lap in the living room of their house, and I would kiss her fingers while the tears slipped silently down her face. Even in middle age, she suffered from arthritis. I loved her hands. When she was long past her piano-playing years and living in a nursing home, I would kiss her fingers, and sometimes I would even paint her nails. I guess even then, God and I had a lot in common. Paca and Clara, shown here with my daughter, were my maternal grandparents. And growing up, they were the one constant in my life. When I was with them, I never doubted that I was loved. Their home was an anchor for me, and just thinking about walking through the kitchen door, I tell you, I can smell a freshly baked angel food cake. I aspire to be the kind of grandparent that they modeled. George Beach said, I seek to make peace with myself and my God. Our conceptions of God must grow or else be shattered. Even people who say they don't believe in God have a conception of God. You have to know what you don't believe in. And most of us have really tiny conceptions of God, and that's just not fair to anyone, including ourselves. So imagine, if you will, that your family's conception of you was frozen forever in time at 8 years old. You know this girl? I was not cute at 8 years old. I think maybe I cut my own bangs. I don't have to tell you what all that means. I wore my plastic purse strapped fetchingly across my body, and my teeth were sort of taking their time moving into any sensible location. Now, my family might cherish memories of me at that stage, but it would be unhealthy for all of us if their whole experience of me was arrested at that point. Can you see how we do that with our ideas about God? We lock the idea, the word even, into this tiny little box. Maybe we stuff it behind a door, close it, and lock it. You know, if you've been spiritually wounded, it is very easy to blame God and to lock them into time and place. But you've both grown since then. Here comes the quote again, seatbelts on. Our conceptions of God must grow or else be shattered. And let me tell you from experience, when your conception of God is shattered, those sharp little shards will show up in the darndest places and at the most inconvenient times, to wound you again and again. Healing can only happen when we make peace. When I lost my faith while studying at a Christian college, it didn't melt away like a popsicle in a warm car. It was a catastrophic shattering of my whole reality. I only knew myself in the context of my faith. What was I without God? God took a bath with his clothes on, his robe to be specific. Why did he do this? He was shy, that's why. A little self-conscious about his body. God wasn't always this way. He used to be free as a bird, running stark naked everywhere. He never thought about bodies at all. And then these things started coming back to him. The whole misunderstanding with Adam and Eve, then circumcision, and then talk of everybody being made in his image until he got afraid to look in a mirror. Everybody had such high expectations, and now he was a little insecure. Could be he was flabby. Love handles on God would have to be huge. So he kept his robe on. I have to admit, this poem is my favorite in the series. It makes me giggle every time I read it. How can you not love a God who's worried about his love handles? We can relate. We can smile at the misunderstandings, and we can feel a little bit bad for God. All those folks who harp about how they're created in his image, and frankly, nobody would want to be like those big-mouthed, flashy dressers. They scream hate-filled curses at the people who are different from them, or maybe just a little bit too much like them for comfort. And are those judgmental, hateful people really in the image of God? Ugh. Humans have always created gods in our own image and then turned the tables blaming God. Unholy wars have been fought on God's behalf and in his name, and I imagine that it would just get tiresome, always having people proclaiming, "Thus saith the Lord," when it couldn't be further from the truth. So, let me digress. A little commentary about TV and megachurch preachers who are so very confident that they hold the truth of all the ages. All you have to do is say a few magic words. In Protestant circles, it's known as the sinner's prayer. And poof, you're good to go. Even my pagan love for spells and charms finds this to be a bit too convenient, a little too easy. Oh, and if you're feeling itchy, I've used the G word 62 times so far. I keep a tally because when I gave this sermon 7.5 years ago, someone came up to me at the end of the service with a bunch of check marks on their order of service. And did I know that I said the word God this many times? I'm pretty sure I just smiled, but I was thinking, I wrote the sermon. So there you have it. I'm helping you keep tally. I think that's the last time I tell you because it might be disheartening. Everybody had such high expectations, and now he was a little bit insecure. And of course we have expectations. I mean, we're talking about God, aren't we? Maybe we would be a little nicer to ourselves, to each other, even to our concepts of God, if we held ourselves to those same high expectations. I think if we did, forgiveness would flow like soft-serve ice cream in July. Goodness and mercy would not only follow us all of our days, but we would ride them like mighty waves. Beach said our conceptions of God must grow or else be shattered. Now maybe you find the notion of a God who opens a salon and frets about love handles to be too small and too frivolous. But really, who's to say what's small or large? If your God is the periodic tables, then maybe opening your conception of God to include not only scientific principles and equations, but to also holding a hand and looking deeply into another's eyes would blow your whole world wide open. We'd all be spontaneously asking people about their lives and noticing those little crinkles of care around their eyes, the calluses on their hands, and you might even find yourself clucking your tongue in sympathy and understanding as they share their cares with you. And we might grow up enough to take over for a spell while God steps out for a smoke. I don't have any words of wisdom for you at this point. All I can do is reassure you that we are on the home stretch. But before I tie this package with a bow, I need to tell you something important. In addition to those who kept a tally for the number of times I used the G word, and those who walked out because something struck too close to home or was just too painful or too idiotic to consider, there were people, timid people, who leaned close to me and whispered, "Thank you. I haven't heard the word God uttered in this place in so long." And then I knew something important about this congregation. Remember, this was my first Sunday. Well, my first Sunday in the pulpit. I had been a spectator for 2 Sundays, enduring an hour in these god-awful pews. And that word does not count in our God tally. I knew then that this was not a monochrome congregation. This was a congregation of many colors, even if those colors were only in our hearts. Although some voices were louder, there were other voices aching to be heard. And those voices were filled with fear and longing. It took a tremendous amount of courage to speak of their longing to someone they'd known for 2 short weeks. And that clinched it. I knew I could do ministry here, a ministry of mutual regard and trust. I knew that if I could bring my whole self, I could model that kind of vulnerability, and together we could create something authentic and special. And I have to say that I had no idea how much courage and vulnerability that would demand of me and of you. God got cable. And for a week, watched nothing but. Didn't see the comet, didn't see the hurricane, missed that baby being born entirely, just watched cable. Funny thing is, he liked it. He knew he wasn't supposed to. All those girls crying about their boyfriends, all those track meets, all that soap and toothpaste. He liked it. He couldn't help it. Then Gabriel came over with a deck of cards, and next thing you know, they've played poker 4 weeks straight. Gabriel's beard nearly as long as God's, and corn chips all over the place. And what God decided was that he liked not cable, not poker, but a break. Every now and then, even God needs a break. I seek to make peace with myself and my God. Our conceptions of God must grow or else be shattered. So what about making peace with myself? I hear you asking. Isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what the quote's really about? What's all this nonsense about God? You've already exceeded the legal limit of references to a deity over a 12-month period, and you have done it all in one sermon. We have lost count. We gave up on God long ago. We disowned him. He disowned us. What's that about making peace? And so I wonder, will you try it? Will you make peace with yourself and your God? Whatever your God looks like? If you allow your conception of God to grow, you might just discover that you have a lot in common. And then who knows? You might get invited to play poker, go for a dip in his pool, or better yet, hold someone's hand and look lovingly in their eyes while God takes a break. And that, my friends, is my most authentic and personal sermon. Have you figured out why I chose this image for the front of the order of service? The guiding image for this hour of worship, worth-ship, holding up that which is of ultimate importance to us. That's the meaning of the word worship, just in case it makes you tingly. Worth-ship, holding it in high regard. Have I locked my God, whatever that means, behind those heavy doors? Am I emerging after playing rounds of poker, ready to give God a break? We'll never know. At least not today. I think it's time to sing. We're going to sing hymn number 131 in your gray hymnal. The words will be projected up front. Amy will lead, and Les will make the words.
Love will guide us, peace inside us, hope inside us, will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within.
Hello, I'm Bob Johnson, a member of the Board of Trustees and a 28-year member of our congregation. As this service draws to an end, our greater service to the world is ready to begin. Let me tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. This coming Saturday, March 18th, will be the first session for those interested in participating in a dream group. See Reverend Michelle following the service if you are interested. Next Sunday, March 19th at 12 noon, right here in the chapel, there will be an update and conversation around the UU principles. The Unitarian Universalist Association is reviewing Article 2 of the bylaws, what we know as our principles and sources. As a member of our congregation, it is indeed our right and responsibility to educate ourselves and provide thoughtful input to the proposed reworking of Article 2. So, Lorraine Marcus and Marie Evans will provide information and a time for conversation right here next Sunday at noon. Grab a quick cup of coffee, return to the chapel to participate in this learning opportunity. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't invite you to participate in supporting this mission and ministry with your financial gifts. You'll find a green basket in the back of the chapel to receive your contributions, or you can give online by going to our website, uuamherst.org, clicking on the giving link, and text your gift to the number on the screen. Your gifts and participation are important because we pick fruit from trees we did not plant. We drink water from wells we did not dig. But this is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who come after.
Please rise and bow to your spirit as we sing our closing blessing and remain standing as we extinguish the chalice. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my mind. Last verse, you know what to do. Look at each other, twinkle your eyes. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. And please join me as we extinguish the chalice flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And for those of you who are on airplane mode, you may return your phones to active mode as you go in peace.
I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. sister up, she is not who